Okay, I'm going to unmute myself just for a second, just to remind anyone coming in of our format. So we are both online, but a couple of us are actually physically in a room. And we're going to wait just a few minutes for everyone, and then I'll do an official introduction of our very important, very cool speaker today. Okay, but in the meantime, yes, if you see in the chat, if you are remote, please put your chat up so you can see us. And as Esther has asked, please mute yourself so we have no weird noises. Just stay there and hold. You don't see this, but we have someone on the desk maneuvering things.
I am a climber, you know.
That's our department chair.
Okay, hello, everyone. Can you all hear me okay? Yes? Thank you, Bill. Okay, all right, so it is officially 11:30, and I will introduce our very first day of our fall pro seminar speaker series. For those incoming new folks and for those that are non-UNLV folks, welcome. I'm Lisa Johnson, and between me and Dr. Karen Hari, we'll both be involved in pro seminar this year. So we are very lucky to have our very first speaker on the very first pro seminar. You may notice our format is both remote, but we have a physical room, and there's a handful of us here physically in the room watching this live stream as well. There's a chat thread on the side. Feel free to put any questions as they come up while Dr. White is given his talk, and when the talk is over, we'll field your questions for you. We'll read it in the chat thread, and of course, anybody here in the room, you'll have opportunities to ask questions too, and I will ask the questions on behalf of our folks here in the room for Dr. White. In the meantime, if you can mute yourself, if you are out there online, so that we don't have any weird background noises, that would be very helpful. And unless there are any questions about how our speaker series is going to go, I'm up here so that I can introduce our first speaker, and I'm very honored to do so since he's coming from UC Berkeley, which is my home. So Dr. White is an assistant professor at the University of California, Berkeley, where I got my PhD. I want to read this bit in his bio because I think this is so great. When he was 4 years old, he decided he wanted to be either an astronaut or an archaeologist when he grew up, but he decided to follow his dream career of an archaeologist as a teenager when he realized that he was an inch too tall for his NASA spacesuit. So I wanted to share that. I couldn't get his whole bio in our flyer, but I think that's awesome. But since then, he has conducted research in his hometown of Boise, Idaho, focusing on community-based work to investigate the past of a multiracial neighborhood. This work has led to a book to be released this winter, so it's coming out soon, called Segregation Made Them Neighbors, an Archaeology of Racialization in Boise, Idaho. He is currently working in St. Croix in the US Virgin Islands with a project that works with African-American descendants communities. And he is involved in the monitoring of climate change-induced erosion at a Chinese immigrant shrimp fishing camp in the San Francisco Bay Area, so near where he is right now. He has past experience working for the Bureau of Applied Research and Anthropology, where he specialized in historical artifact analysis, documents, ethnography, archaeological field work. He has worked on a number of cultural resource management projects, and he's maintained his relationships there, working to build bridges between academia and public archaeology. He is an outspoken advocate for diversity in the field of archaeology and is very active in digital media. He's a blogger, he's a podcaster. He has contributed to reflection pieces in the journal Sapiens titled Why the Whiteness of Archaeology is a Problem, written from his own experience in CRM and working in archaeological field projects, in addition to a number of presentations surrounding the need to cultivate diversity in American archaeology. So I'm very excited to hear his talk today entitled, Is Archaeology on Fire? The Enrollment Cliff, Opting Out in American Archaeology. So virtual and very real class for Dr. White.
Thank you, everybody. Can you hear me? Was that a yes? Was that a no? I hope folks can hear me.
Yes.
All right, good.
Sorry, Bill, yes, we can hear you.
You know how this goes. Every time on Zoom, it's can you hear me? All right, I'm doing that right now. Let's see. Can you see my slideshow? That's the next question. And of course, I can never see folks, so you have to just tell me. I can never see. Is it working?
Yes, I see your
It only
slideshow.
took me 2 years to figure out how to use Zoom. That's great. I think I'm doing pretty good. I'm better than many, but I'm not the best. I've seen some real pros out here at using Zoom, but I'm getting better every day with every talk. First of all, I'm absolutely overjoyed to be invited to give a talk. I didn't know that I was the first, so I will do my best to set things off this year on a good foot. I wanted to talk. I had an idea I was going to talk about the work in St. Croix, but then there was an article that came out that I read that made me really kind of it joined with things that I already had noticed in higher ed. And so I thought that I'd just bring some of these things to you all, and I hope to finish with enough time to have an open discussion. I really want to talk about this because it impacts all of us. And so, yeah, my name is Bill White, and I'm here at the University of California, Berkeley, that's on unceded Muwekma Ohlone land here in the city of Berkeley. And I work for the University of California, which is an institution that has not repatriated tens of thousands of grave goods and human remains of Native people. So both of those things are, they shape who I am and what I talk about. And I also want folks to know clearly that I'm an individual who's living on land that was stolen. And I also want everyone to know that I'm an individual who comes from a long line, hundreds of years of immigrants from parts of Europe and enslaved Africans who were brought or taken and somehow found themselves all here in North America. And so as I give this talk, you'll see that how all these things, how these all kind of come together as my own perspective as an individual living in the United States on stolen land, a person of color working in archaeology, trying to reclaim heritage for communities the best way I know how. So the title about "Is Archaeology on Fire" comes from this this article that was in Inside Higher Ed that was written by the president of Temple University, Jason Wingard. There's a couple of statistics that he kind of leads off with about enrollments being down. I don't know, they're not down everywhere. That's one of the things that's interesting about this, that certain institutions seem to increase enrollments and be doing, very well, while others are suffering, and then the smaller institutions we know are filing bankruptcy and closing or being consumed by larger organizations. But the pandemic, is a question. Was this all caused by the pandemic? Across the United States, we're looking at enrollments in 2022 that are down about 4%. But if you look back even further over the last 10 years, we're down about 4 million individuals. And, only 1.3 million of that is the direct result of the pandemic. So we could say, the pandemic has increased this. I definitely don't think it has helped at all. But this has been a change that's coming for a long time. The decreases, as Dr. Wingard writes, are highest among students of color. So this is really huge, because a lot of the gains that we've made over the years trying to get people of color, make college more accessible, we're starting to see those things kind of get winnowed away by these different reasons. And one of the main reasons that Dr. Wingard says is, the college degree in his analysis has probably reached the peak of its value and maybe is on the wane. And I would argue against that. But, that's one of the things that's a popular concept in the United States right now, if you talk to people. So, I talk about those things over the last 2 years, but this is something that has been predicted for a long time, that there would just be a decrease organically in college enrollments because of this thing that's been called by higher ed the enrollment cliff. So folks who work in higher ed, this information comes from a series that was produced by Coupa HR, which is the colleges and universities HR professional organization. They've been doing this research, and they published a report in 2019 that I remember catching my eye way back then. My wife has worked in higher ed and has done human resources for many years for several different universities, and she's also talked about this. She's known about this for a long time. So demographers have known for a long time that organically the birth rate is decreasing in the United States, and that we would get to a point where there were fewer college-age individuals to go to college. And so their estimates in 2019 is that by 2025 we'd be down 15%. And I don't have data, unfortunately, that connects what happened right now with this overall prediction. Perhaps we're in line. Perhaps this is accelerated. Any which way, this impact will be felt disproportionately across the United States, with certain institutions that are marked here in red predicted to have much larger decreases than other places. So this dovetails, like I said, with the concept that's going on of just opting out. There's a lot of folks, college-age students, that are really opting out. And in the past, universities, when there were these decreases in enrollments, they could really get on a campaign to try to increase recruitment, or find more students, or find students from other countries, or find other kinds of way to increase enrollments. But given this population trend is, down in the United States, it's across the United States, and I don't have data to compare it with the rest of the world, but I know in a lot of the other countries in Europe and parts of Asia, the birth rate is going down too. So it doesn't really look like we're going to be able to go outside the US boundaries to recruit tons and tons of students. And another huge reason why is because it costs a lot. It costs a lot. So there's a lot of folks who have college degrees that are my age, that have kids, that are seriously questioning the value of sending their kid to school, knowing that they could walk away with, $50, $60, $100,000 to get a degree that they need to work in society. Especially if an increasing number of people are opting out, then there might be more positions for less skilled individuals. And so I end up being in this kind of really difficult situation. My son is in 7th grade, and it's not possible really for me to save tuition for them to go to college. So we've got to figure out some kind of way but I'm also one of the people who is paying off student loans, and I have been for a long time. Now, that's also, just like me, mixed with the understanding that we need more educated Americans, more people from the United States that have higher level of education, because this phenomenon I'm talking about of college being too expensive is really something for the United States. In my travels, my colleagues that I know from the Netherlands and from Denmark, they don't have the same problem. In fact, students who are capable to go to college, it's just assumed and understood they will go on to college. And amongst those societies, it's also assumed that you're just going to go on for a graduate degree, and that those things are just going to be something that you do because they have this different kind of social system where students who are qualified to college, they get to go to college for free. They even get paid in Denmark a stipend. And if you don't qualify to go to college, there's a series of different technical schools that you can go to. So the idea is that their population will continue becoming more and more educated as time goes on. We here in the United States are in a situation where it's so expensive, there's a possibility in the future that we'll be less educated, right? Even when we need folks to be more educated, because folks who are educated have more secure employment throughout their entire life. They'll make more money through their entire life. They're more likely to have retirement, and they're less likely to require social services. So as our country gets into this phase where we need more educated people to help solve these massive challenges that are all around us, we've got the opposite thing going on in the United States. Yeah, so the question is, how does this impact archaeology? And as someone who has been doing cultural resources for quite a while, um, the number one thing that I can think of is, professional archaeologists have to have a degree. And during the pandemic, archaeology was considered an essential service to the United States, to our economy, to the fact of the U.S. even, moving into the next day. We have to have archaeologists. And the way our system is set up, they have to have college education. College is the only place where you can get the education you need to be an archaeologist. So if we're going to have archaeologists in the future, we have to really think creatively about how we're going to handle this, given what we're going into in the next few years. So at this point, I've laid out the situation, the conundrum, and I don't think there's going to be an answer. I think that there's going to be a million different strategies and solutions and ways that we handle this entire thing, and it's all going to be based on where you live and what state you are in, what institution you go to, the kinds of cultural resources companies that are nearby, and how willing the archaeologists are in that area to try and address this kind of thing. So I'm going to continue forward and talk a little bit about myself, my own career, and then some of the things that I'm doing to address it. And I'd like to close with a discussion about things that other folks who are archaeologists, what we can all do as a group to address this. As Dr. Johnson mentioned, I did cultural resources for quite a while, mainly in the American West. I finished my master's in 2005, but before that, I even started working for the Idaho Transportation Department on compliance projects. And that was just the career, cultural resources is where most of us end up working. It's the career that employs the most archaeologists, for better or for worse, and it's where most American archaeology is being done. And as someone who was young and really wanted to do projects, it was a natural fit. It was a great place for me to explore and to work on so many different projects and learn about a lot of different culture histories, and just get a lot of experience doing archaeology of all different sorts. And around 2014, I was living in Tucson. I was working for cultural resources companies, and I had a young family that was, growing and starting up, and my kids were young, and I decided I was going to try to go back for my PhD because it just gets harder as your kids get older to go to college. Folks out there who are parents might be able to relate. So I went back for my PhD, and at that point, that's when I started to work for the Bureau of Applied Research and Anthropology at the University of Arizona. And my job there was once again to do archaeology, but this time it was a lot different. It was working with Native American tribes, helping them fulfill the same obligations I'd been doing for a long time with these federal laws, but also to try and help build capacity and help uh, um, folks from these different Native American communities to connect to these sites and advocate for the preservation of these sites. And those years that I spent working for BARA, they really let me know that there's a different kind of cultural resources that could possibly exist out there. And that's what really kind of shaped the whole desire to do more community-based archaeological work. So the other thing I noticed too through my career, and you can see the dates here when I was actively doing cultural resources, 2014, it just got harder and harder and harder to find skilled, quality people to do archaeology. And so there was kind of a disconnect between, companies that had worked, I don't know, since the 1970s or 80s, just understanding there's going to be this round of young field school graduates that'll come every year, and then they'll work, and then many of them won't like archaeology, and then they'll move on, to the point where there wasn't really round after round for every company of field school graduates who are going to go on. And at that point, there were companies that were kind of thinking about building partnerships with universities, because they realized that there weren't going to have a pipeline of skilled individuals to move forward. So it's this experience of working at Bara and knowing that there was a community-based possibility for cultural resources, and being on the front lines of trying to hire quality people that will help you pull these projects off. It really kind of moved me in this direction to try and address this issue as best as I could. So after I joined academia, I started to become more aware of the problem and how acute it was for anthropology specifically. And this matters a lot for archaeology, because the Secretary of the Interior standards for professional archaeologists require us to have a graduate degree in anthropology or a related field. And there's many government agencies and cultural resources companies that won't hire someone who does not have a field school and an anthropology degree. So anthropology enrollments, even though all the people who go to school for anthropology don't go on to be archaeologists, this is the source where we're getting the folks who will be tomorrow's archaeologists. This information comes from a AAA CERT study. It's published by Daniel Ginsberg in 2017, and it showed that in the 10 years leading up to then, there had been a decrease in the number of anthropology enrollments across the United States. So I don't have the numbers for anthropology enrollments since the pandemic or the last 5 years or so to fill the gap here, but you can see that this was already starting before the pandemic. And that this data showed of these different social sciences, archaeology and anthropology were disproportionately worse. We're seeing a worse, more precipitous drop. So this might be difficult to see, but the orange line is anthropology, and it's going down. There's some others that are paralleling it, like economics is going down, and then archaeology is at the bottom. We don't have very many archaeology programs in the United States, but even those, we're seeing them go down. This was 2017. Now, the other thing that was interesting about this is it showed that the anthropology students of European descent were where the largest percentage of the decrease was coming from. So this data doesn't show that there was a huge increase of students of color that were joining these these anthropology programs, but anthropology being a primarily majoritively white occupation in the United States right now, the biggest drop was happening among these students of European descent. So moving on to cultural resources, in the United States in archaeology, it has become a pathway for many communities to advocate on behalf of their own heritage sites. This is increasing as we move forward. And one of the goals right now we have been thinking about is doing what we can to increase the enrollments of anthropology students of color, trying to get more people to meet these Secretary of the Interior standards, people of color, so that they can advocate on behalf of these sites in a way that white archaeologists can't. But the other thing that is, parallels that increased capacity among communities of color is the absolute reality that we have to have archaeology to make sure that there's compliance with environmental laws in the United States. And the way our regulatory contexts are set up for these environmental laws, many projects will get delayed, slowed down, or proceed without adequate clearance of archaeologists if we can't find archaeologists to do the work. So during the pandemic, we learned that archaeology is essential in the United States because of cultural resource management. Communities for the longest time have been telling us it's essential to maintain their culture, to help people know who they are and where they came from. And then this whole decrease in enrollments has the potential to slow down our enrollments in graduate programs, which is detrimental to people having permits and contracts under federal agencies to do the kind of cultural resources work under the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Archaeology. So the thing that I've really kind of learned over time is that there's, really two ways that departments can really address this. You can demonstrate why archaeology matters to the world. And one of the best ways to do that is to show that you can get a job doing it, that it's something that is an essential service for the United States. And that's, I feel like there's some departments out there that are much better positioned to convey this information. And then there's many departments that are not in that place. And then there's some that just they're never going to address this. They're not going to talk about it. But if you were interested in, how we can manage this or how we can maintain enrollments, is show students that this matters and then show them that they can actually feed themselves doing archaeology. Now, the project that Dr. Johnson mentioned that I've been working on since 2017 is a project that tries to do those two things that I was talking about. It's a project that's funded by the University of California's Historically Black Colleges and Universities program, that's designed to provide funding for researchers who are doing sciences and other kinds of projects to recruit undergrad students from historically Black colleges and universities to work alongside them with the project. Along with this comes stipend and travel for students to come from wherever they're at in the United States to visit campuses here in the state of California, and then to come with us to our field sites. In the case of this is an archaeology project, so they come with me to the Virgin Islands, to the island of St. Croix, and work at the estate Little Princess. So we've been doing this. This is probably the third time that we've had students under this program working with us in the Virgin Islands. And in addition to trying to get people the skills that they need to be archaeologists, it's also a way to connect with the organic heritage conservation systems that already exist among the Black communities there. And if you're interested in learning more about it, we published an article last year. Actually, I think it came out earlier this year. I have no idea what year it actually is anymore. But it's an article that came out where myself and my colleagues, Alicia Odawale, Ayana Flewellen, Alexander Jones, and Justin Dunavant, talk about our work, how we created this project, and some of the central main tenets of the work that we're doing there. At its heart, it is a community-based participatory project where folks from the community are encouraged to come out and to see what we're doing. We have a connection through Dr. Alexandra Jones, CEO of Archaeology in the community, to recruit students from local boys and girls clubs to work with us as archaeologists. So these are middle school and high school students who come out and work and do archaeology for a week. We also collaborate with other heritage conservation organizations and scholars on island at the University of the Virgin Islands and Crucian Heritage and Nature Tours. So this whole thing has a combination of different organizations, folks on the island, community groups, scholars in Denmark, because the Virgin Islands used to be the Danish West Indies, so many of the historical documents and records are in Denmark. Folks over there have been translating a lot of these things, scanning maps, and otherwise just helping us better understand the Danish resources there as we talk to them about archaeology and connecting with Afro-Crucian community there. So it's a collaboration that's got a lot of different moving parts, and one of the main pieces of it is helping prepare students for careers in archaeology. Now, the field school is typical field school. Students do all the field school things that you can imagine: excavation, drawing, photography. We do some surveying with shovel probes there because of the forest is so dense, and so students are part of all of those different things. But the main difference is that they're working in it's students from historically Black colleges and universities that are working in a Black community with all Black archaeologists who are running the program. And they see that this is actually something that you can do, even though their school doesn't have anthropology, and that archaeology may not be taught at their university, that there's other Black people who are doing archaeology, that there's Black men and women who have done this as their career and found a way through all these systems. And this is how we feed ourselves and pay our bills. And I think for the first time, many students, that they're just now realizing that this is a thing that they possibly could do for a living. And so, that's even though it is, a traditional field school, that hook of trying to get people to realize that this is something that they can do. We have had some people go on to graduate school for an anthropology degree, but we're always hoping to expand the program and include more individuals. And I'd like to say that that's the only one out there, or I mean, I would be remiss in saying that that's the only one out there, but there's several other similar projects that also have a community hook and focus on Black, Indigenous, and people of color sites. For example, recently I just saw a talk about what Dr. Ibarola and Dr. Lori Lee are doing at Fort Mose with Dr. James Davidson through the University of Florida. It's a multi-university project that's funded by the National Park Service to address erosion at Fort Mose, which is an early African American site. And in the process, they're recruiting students from the local area. They're also paying them a stipend. They also have a similar structure. This is part of a trend. I mean, I did my archaeological field school, I think, in 1999, and we didn't get paid and we didn't have community engagement. Well, we were definitely engaged with people who were there. We were in the community and we were trying to connect with indigenous folks who, you know, were interested in the site and were the descendants of the site. So it wasn't fully fleshed out the way this is, but you can see how 20 years of evolution from, you know, where I started off and where other people who taught those classes what they thought was a field school. You're starting to see more of this. The community collaboration and engagement is becoming a major component. That connecting with cultural resources companies is a major piece. I mean, we always have cultural resources folks coming to our field school. The field schools that I've run, even the one in Boise and other places, I always have CRM folks come out. I have students prepare resumes, be ready to work, be ready to talk to people who are hiring. You know, this is definitely, you know, becoming a thing. And then also trying to teach the skills that I know folks will need in cultural resources, like digging shovel probes and learning how to use a Trimble handheld GPS and how to take an adequate photo. You know, those are all things that aren't necessarily always taught in all field schools, but I try to make sure that students have all those skills so that they don't get caught out there with, you know, unarmed and unready to go. Paying students is absolutely huge because I think we've gotten to a point where the traditional field school of coming with me to Turkey or coming with me to, I'm just putting these things out there, coming with me to somewhere far out, Poland or something like that, is not attainable for the majority of the student who's going to college. And also the mandate that our students is asking has changed. We're getting more working class students and even students who are coming from what we'd consider middle class families. Once again, their parents want to know, is this going to turn into money? Is this going to feed my child in the future? And when you say, come in with me to work in Poland for 6 weeks and you pay $8,000 and plus your transportation, plus your food and any other kind of travel you want to go there just to dig a trench, I mean, that's really off-putting to a lot of parents. And then people of color, it's basically forget it. If you're not going to get paid to go out there and do it, it's very difficult for a family of color to support someone going out there and working for free. You know, on the other hand, building the connection with BIPOC communities, as I showed in that graph before, you know, the people of color that were enrolled in these anthropology programs was a small layer. That is the previously untapped resource that's in all of our universities. While we just sit here talking to our students that are all the same people that saw archaeology on the Discovery Channel and decided they were going to do that for a living, I mean, that means that that huge wealth of people who just showed up to college that are very bright, that are totally aimed on going to grad school, but just want to go into law. They want to become a doctor. Those people finally realize that, hey, I don't have to necessarily do that to have a quality, you know, life, to have a career after that. So connecting with communities of color and seeing people of color doing archaeology, telling them that there are people of color that do archaeology, you know, that builds motivation to pursue a career in archaeology. And those are the kind of things that I think a lot of times are just kind of missing in when we discuss enrollments or recruitment or any of those kind of things. Now, I say retention and recruitment because I think recruitment is the second step because we already have students. As the tables are already showing, we've got all these students that from however they have navigated their way to our classroom have decided that they're going to take anthropology classes and they're going to take anthropology as a degree. And so our number one priority here in this world where everything's getting more expensive and more complicated and difficult for young people is to help people finish college. it's great for us to recruit more students to do archaeology, but we have to have educated generations in the future. And the more people who opt out, the more people who drop out and who, avoid going to college in the first place, that's our biggest strikeout when it comes to what we're doing in these universities. And the biggest way to help people stay in is to be attentive to what students are asking for, because right now our students are asking for all kinds of things, and I don't really see a lot of universities listening, because they're looking at that enrollment cliff, they're looking at reduced revenue, they're looking at all these increased expenses and stuff, and they're not thinking about the fact that students are saying stuff like, I'd really love to have these classes online because I have to take care of my daughter all day and I can't drive all the way to Berkeley from, God knows where, and pay $25 for parking to just sit here and listen about artifacts when you're just showing me the pictures, right? So having these kind of flexible ways to teach, listening to what students want, those are the kind of things that will help keep students enrolled in college, and that increases our odds of having people go on further to graduate school or finish their anthropology degree. As far as recruiting people to archaeology, showing them that this is actually something that you can do, and then teaching them the kind of stuff in the classroom that they can walk out that door and go get a job doing archaeology and see if this is what they really want to do for a living. I mean, that's the other piece too that's missing. A lot of times our curriculum is not really focused on functional skills that will get someone a job. And so I think that that's a major piece. And then support among the community, because right now, archaeology is like Indiana Jones and TV and the Discovery Channel and History Channel, right? Most communities don't know that they have hundreds of professional archaeologists that don't do that stuff out there. And so when they hear that the freeway is not going to be expanded, that they can get to work faster because there's an archaeological site in the way, they're freaking out and thinking, well, why would we even do that? But if they understood that that is the source of us being Americans, and that it takes time to adequately address that, and to do what we need to for our future generations, it changes the conversation. And it also changes the support for archaeology in the United States. So, I'm kind of moving it over to what can other folks do, right? Being attentive to the needs of students and to, entry-level archaeologists, that will help BIPOC students. It'll help all archaeologists, right? The same things that make anthropology an off-putting space for all students, or for students of color, addressing those will make it a more inviting place for all of the students who are in there. When we start to teach skills that are transferable across a bunch of different industries, then you start to see the relevance and applicability of an anthropology degree throughout our entire economy. Because most of the people who finish in anthropology don't ever go into archaeology or even anthropology at all. They go into a bunch of other different fields. And we are teaching people these functional skills. We're just not always conveying that to students. We're not always showing them how this can transform into a viable pathway. And so I have this kind of pyramid thing here, this graphic, because it's showing that the people who are the foundation of everything we need are the ones who have the most need for change in the way we're doing things, and also live with the most precarity. And the people at the top who have the most power to make this change have the least precarity, and they also have the least need for change, right? So as you go through this whole thing, it's people at the bottom who are telling us and showing us that we need to change the way we're going. And then the people at the top, through all these different layers, actually need to be more attentive and pay attention to that. And so that's kind of the bad thing, because you're seeing the transition and the transformation come from assistant professors like me, and local community researchers, and local heritage conservation groups that are providing lunch for students and doing all these different flexible things and showing up to sites. But we don't always see people who are at the very top of this, the people who are the director of the Department of Defense's Cultural Resources Program. We never hear from them. We never hear from the leader of the Western region of National Park Service ever really connecting with any of these groups, and never really even talking about these careers, or actually aware of what's going on. So the other thing too that's as this change comes, and there's no way around it, this change is definitely coming. Those organizations that end up in the best position with the most prestige are the most threatened by having this kind of change. The pathway is forming around it. It's this community based. It's hiring field school students as interns and giving them temporary jobs rather than just having them dig trenches. This is the future of what's happening, and students are asking for it. and students are moving towards it. And there's some instructors at institutions that are doing it. But overall, the most prestigious universities don't necessarily have to make any of these changes. They don't see that there's a threat, and they also have the most to lose from this happening. By paying attention to the needs of the people who need help the most, we can actually address much of the problems that'll come from the increased or the decrease in enrollments that'll happen in most fields. Because if anthropology can be something that's attentive to the careers or to the struggles of early career folks and students, it ends up being the department that actually cares when many of the other ones at the university don't care. When the cultural resources industry starts to care about these entry-level folks, realizing that they're not an expendable resource that you can just get more next year when they all graduate, when they start taking care of their employees, you start to see something that's a functional pathway for people of color to work in cultural resources, right? And all of that means recognizing that the thing that we've created right now over X amount of hundreds of years is not comfortable for a lot of students. We need to be more flexible with how we're doing this kind of work, and we need to start paying students for field schools, treating them like they're employees, they're junior employees. And in reality, at the end of the day, everybody just has to recognize that this is coming. And I'm not the one who's, I hope that folks don't think that I'm, like bringing bad news or something like that, but we just didn't have any kids for 40 years. We just don't have humans that are going to go to college, and the rest of the world didn't do the same. So we don't have the luxury of just infinite resources of young people to just keep recruiting. Change is happening. And whether we're part of it or whether we stand and let it go by or whether we get smashed by the waves, we cannot control what is actually unfolding in front of our eyes. We can only change our response to this, right? And so once again, those who benefit the most from this existing system, those elite universities, those large cultural resources companies, those organizations that don't really, they're not necessarily feeling like they're threatened, they're the ones who have the most to lose. But also, you shouldn't be looking for them to lead the change. It's not going to come from the elite institutions because they don't feel like they need to change, and they also benefit the most from this existing system. I'm moving towards the end here, but trying to prevent archaeologists from dropping out, we can go a long way by demonstrating how meaningful this is for the country in which we live. It's an essential industry. It's something that we need to keep moving forward. And when it comes to increasing diversity and focusing on the future of archaeology, I do think that looking at all these communities that have been overlooked by anthropology, that weren't considered, part of the acceptable group of folks that would become archaeologists in the future, looking at these communities and becoming that kind of insightful, collaborative, reflexive field. That's the thing that's going to bring in more people of different races and colors and backgrounds. And by doing so, it becomes a reason for these students of European descent to stay in anthropology because they see that they're actually addressing these things that are going on in the world. And so I see the future as collaborating with communities. We got to get more fans out there so that we have people who will stand by our side when we fight for archaeological sites and when we ask for funding and when we try to say archaeology is important. Folks who are aware of what archaeology does and aware that we're sensitive to the cultural knowledge of folks through these collaborations, those end up being our friends, the ones who will support this from the outside. We also need to build capacity too, because right now, we don't really have people of color who are running these large firms. There's a few folks that I know, but the largest engineering firms are really these people of European descent who are running archaeology, who came up through an entire system with a different mindset, right? So as we start to pay people for their work and show them that it's a functional way for them to have a career, we have a better chance of diversifying all the different fields that go into environmental consulting. And that's what does most of the archaeology in the United States. And one of the ways that we show that it's meaningful is by, addressing these ills, the things that we didn't create, but we live with: racism, colonialism, capitalism. We didn't make these things, but we definitely don't have to live with them running our lives, right? So working forward, rewriting these histories, changing the way that we understand the world around us. That's the kind of thing that students, they want to hear. They're fired up. People in communities want to hear this kind of stuff going on. And the only way that we can do that is by listening to what people need and helping them, letting go of who we think we are, going back to the place where we are listening to folks, where we are getting this kind of information and then trying to do the next right thing to help folks, right? because if we're going to make a contribution to humanity on a global scale, which is that archaeology already has been doing that the whole time I've been around, and the whole time even before they even invented archaeology, there's been antiquarians and other folks who are using these things from the past that are making a contribution with how we actually understand the world. But I think that by empowering students and empowering communities and helping them make the decisions for their own heritage sites, first of all, we don't have to do all the work anymore because we're not the ones who are doing everything. That should relieve a burden off of archaeologists that feel like they need to be creating all this stuff. But also, it creates a whole group of allies and a pool of people who want to do archaeology as a living, that want to go into this and they want to move forward. So I feel like, with this enrollment decrease and all these things that are going on and everything that's really moving through the world, as an anthropologist and archaeologist, I just keep thinking about, how young Homo sapiens is as a species. And if you look at, many of our estimates that Homo sapiens sapiens has been around for 200,000 years, that means that, everyone here has 10,000 grandmothers that lived on this earth and went through pandemics and went through environmental change and went through population decreases and warfare and all the stuff that we're dealing with right now. And all 10,000 of those grandmothers led up to the day where we're at right now. And you can imagine if we follow the trajectory of most mammal species on the planet Earth, we have, hundreds of thousands, a million years left to evolve. And so our species is at its, childhood, really, its teenage years. And we may think that we're the center and the epitome and all that different stuff, but if you think about the fact that you have, 30,000 or 40,000 more grandmothers that are coming ahead of you in the line, you start to really put a perspective on the fact that, we're in the middle, that we're at the beginning. And the best thing about being at the beginning is that everything is new again, and that you can always make things the way that you want them to be. And so we can look at this enrollment cliff and join arms and try to hold people back and try to do everything that we possibly can to keep our tiny little territory viable. But every time we do that, we cut ourselves off from all the rest of the potential that's out there. And I'm not saying that the enrollment cliff is good or bad. I'm not saying that people opting out of high school is good or bad. People are just doing what they feel like they need to do in the world in which they live. And so I encourage the people who are watching this to be aware of what's happening, what could possibly happen in the future, but also be mindful of the fact that there is a vast, long, long future ahead of all the human race. And that, the things that we do right now, if we do them in a way that's positive and can create the kind of good results that bring forth the world that we want to see, we have the chance to have these kind of things echo for generations into the future. Of course, it always starts with us being bold and acting right now. We can't be reactive. We have to just pay attention to what's going on, plan for the future, do the very best we can. And I feel like connecting with these overlooked communities, growing our group of people who are interested in archaeology and conveying the value of archaeology as a career, as a craft, as something that's essential to the human race. I feel like that's really where we need to be focusing. And when we do that, you'll start to see things change in academic departments and with cultural resources companies. So like I said, I want this to be a discussion. I feel like we have some time. We have about 15 minutes. So I'm going to stop sharing this slideshow. I want folks to, let's start talking about this. We've got a range of different people. It's beautiful. So I want to hear what other people have to say. I've been on a podcast for a long time, and so when the chat's going on, I try not to look at the chat because it stops me from speaking, and then I just get.
Are you going to moderate it, Lisa, or do you want me to? Or?
Liam, would you like me to just turn it over to you? You can just speak in person. This is Dr. Liam Frink, so I'm going to just let you ask your question. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Bill, this was just terrific. Thank you so much for joining us. I really, really got a lot out of this. And I enjoyed kind of economic argument. That's really what you're making here, which I think is really important. Although I'm not quite as convinced that we're so important to indigenous communities, telling them who they are. I think that's problematic. And my guess is lots of indigenous. But one thing I love to, can everyone hear me? Can folks hear me? Okay.
Yeah, yes.
I'd like you to address, this was really great, and thanks for bringing on that article too. So there's this white flight, what I'm hearing, and I'd like to understand if that's gendered flight. And I was also thinking of feminists. This is an old study among feminists in that when women started to get into industries like secretaries, other things, resources went down, status went down, and white guys fled. Right? So this is not a new kind of thing happening. And what I would actually like you to think about, and maybe you haven't, is the context of these field schools and other things that students involved. What else is turning students off? Not just whether they can make money at it, but also like Barbara Voss's article about her experiences at and others. So any comments on that, Phil?
Sure, I'm glad you mentioned that too, because this is
I
like
don't mean to interrupt, but is there a way to kind of, someone reiterate what Dr. Frank just said? Your whole little comment or question was muffled, and I'm not sure. Dr. White, can you maybe reiterate what you're being asked?
Yeah. No, Dr. Frink brought up a lot of really great observations about what happens when there's increased participation of women in industries, and mentioned, and I didn't bring it up. It's a 40-minute talk, so I didn't fully talk about it. But yeah, the reality that there's a drop in the perceived prestige of those careers, and that there's a flight of men from those fields, and that you start to see a drop in revenue and I guess money associated with those fields, right? And so the question was, speaking of the context of these different field schools and stuff, are we attentive to that? Are we paying attention to that? Is that something that we're aware of? It's hard for me to address that one because my instructors mostly were women, right? So I went to school in the 90s, and I had, great mentors that were men, but it was just understood as I went through cultural resources that, my bosses and the people that I worked with, I learned how to do archaeology, were women. So I never really saw a difference between the gender in that. But, I can definitely see how that might be making a contribution when you see the increase of people of color advocating and doing these interesting things. You start to see that as maybe something that minorities are doing now and not people of European descent. I had never really thought of that. Not sure where the numbers from that would come from, but yeah, I mean, I never really thought of that. With the situation of women, Dr. Frink also mentioned that Barbara Voss's recent articles on harassment, perhaps that being a contributor to attrition from the field. Totally. Sexism, in my experience, is one of the things that has devastated more women's careers than I can imagine, especially if a woman decides to be a mother. I have seen companies just basically make it impossible for them to continue working there. And so, there's some information from the Southeastern Archaeological Conference a few years ago, a survey that showed that the women in their 30s were, leaving archaeology at higher rates, which meant that the management level of people in their 40s and 50s and beyond was mostly men, even though entry, there's half women or maybe even more women in the entry levels. Because of the way that cultural resources was structured, that had been a huge thing that had driven women out of the field. And I've also seen a lot of engaged dads leave the field too, because it's very difficult for you to stay in cultural resources and be there for your kids. So yeah, there's structural things that are even beyond that. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that's something that I hadn't necessarily been thinking of, but now I can't stop thinking about it. I guess I came up in a world where I didn't really think about that kind of stuff. I thought of, harassment and racism, and those are real things, and I need to make sure I fight it. But then I never really thought about the fact that, there could also be other blowback where people just decide they don't even want to do it at all because it's just women and people of color. I didn't really think about that.
I know there was a string of really interesting comments going on the entire talk, but I don't see any clear question. Oh, I do have a question from Lucas Johnson. I would encourage educators to understand that a CRM firm does not just hire field agents. They also need authors, GIS specialists, production managers for field reports. Bill, can you speak to these skills that people can learn in an undergraduate program in anthropology?
Yeah, and that's exactly right. So, my classes personally, the classes that I teach on archaeology and historic preservation, you can't finish it without us talking about the National Historic Preservation Act. All the stuff that I even talk about in the class is always CRM projects or projects that came through some kind of environmental nexus. So we always just talk about that as the major mechanism for archaeology in the United States, and you can't make it out without getting a decent idea of introduction of what that law is. So that's a huge thing. And then writing and editing, writing, technical writing, right? Like that's just a huge thing. A lot of short writing projects with a lot of comments and requests to rewrite them again and again. That's something that is also common in my classes that comes out. And then group activities, because you're never going to actually, in fact, do any of this stuff in CRM by yourself. I mean, those are all things that are quite easy to structure into every single one of my classes. But then, in the field, uh, helping someone become a field archaeologist is what we're trying to do out there. So using a compass and learning how to draw maps and do all those kind of applied activities. But then, of course, seeing what happens when you have a drone, or seeing what happens when you can 3D model a feature or a unit. Like they get to see both worlds of it, because I want folks to be aware, knowing how to identify lithics and historical artifacts, and historical and prehistoric ceramics. I mean, those are all things that end up happening out there. But then, there's some stuff that you can really only learn in cultural resources, like uh, time management, managing your body, using your body to, make a living, right? Like sitting in a chair for X amount of times, you got to figure out what you're going to do, how that affects your body, walking across uneven terrain. I mean, some of that stuff can't really be taught in a classroom. You have to go out and do it. But the goal would be to talk with more cultural resources companies to figure out what activities I can do here while people are enrolled that will transfer directly to the workplace. For example, doing assignments that they can just use as examples, that they know how to fill out a state archaeology form, or that they know how to fill out a shovel probe log, or write a unit summary or something like that. I mean, those are things that I'd like to do in the classroom that can just go straight to companies and be part of your CV.
Thank you, Dr. White. I want to point everyone to the chat thread. If you're not already paying attention, there are links being embedded. Dr. Frank's sharing additional information. There is a discussion going on, but the question we have from one of our UNLV graduate students, Liam Johnson: could you give any advice to graduate students to help advance these issues with the limited agency that we have?
Sure. Yeah. Uh, so that's one of those main things of why that line is about those with the actual ability to do something are the ones who are just going to drag their knuckles in the sand, because it's the graduate students who do CRM that are out there doing the work, that know what they need to be learning in school, and then they come to class with guys like me that have been here for a million years and just don't want to hear anything, right? So my suggestion for graduate students is to recognize the odds of you getting a tenure track job and to play those odds, right? So if you aimed for to be the state historic preservation officer of the state of Nevada, and you fell short by being a principal investigator at a CRM company, you still made it higher than most of the other people, right? If you notice that you go to a company and that they're looking for all this range of skills, how can you find the devices and the time and the people who know those things to say you've done all those skills, right? Like if you need land navigation, how can you take the courses to get those skills? How can you hopefully meet up with people who don't charge you anything to learn how to do that stuff? Because that's also a thing, financial and time resources, right? So my advice would be for graduate students is to look for the jobs that you really want to have, and what are all the skills that all of the people have that have those jobs, and then try to figure out a free and applied way for you to get those skills, and to just I mean, I'm not sure. My tenure package just got put in, right, and I'm being recorded. So I don't know how you are going to convince professors at a university to transform their curriculum to actually help cultural resources. There was articles written in the 1970s on the fact that universities weren't teaching students how to do archaeology, and 50 something years later, this is still the thing. I just gave a talk that's saying that we're not doing it, right? So I would say empower your own self and try to find those skills and abilities for yourself, and then find a way to get them on a CV or some kind of evidence, a blog post or something that you did it, so that you have evidence that you did it. And then just say prayers for faculty. I mean, I don't know. That's where I'm at. Just like, I don't know, put some coins in the well and wish that they'll learn.
All right, we do have a couple minutes left, and I have a hand raised in the room by our own department chair, Dr. Benny Scheck. Do you want to ask directly, or do you want me to just reiterate?
If Bill can you hear me, Bill?
Yes, I can.
Great. Well, first, thanks so much for just a really stimulating and interesting talk. So my question has to do with, we're talking about different stakes for different institutions, different folks. And my question is CVPR-oriented archaeology research, do you think that CVPR-oriented archaeology research is viewed differently by elite universities and archaeology programs than it is in others? And if so, how?
Yeah, I definitely think it is. I think it's seen as like a hobby that you did on the side, but I don't think it's unsurmountable to make it look like it's, a organized mission to another place, right? And so in that, I mean that universities and other organizations are really looking for those kind of publications and those grant dollars from these high-ranking organizations and these high-ranking journals as like proof that that's a worthwhile thing. So something like Fort Mose or something like St. Croix or other ones, those fit the criteria because they bring in the grant dollars from these agencies, and it looks like you're doing that kind of piece. We publish in these journals and write these books, so then that's the other kind of like social proof for academia. And so at this point, it does seem like it's kind of like unscientific, more humanist kind of research rather than pure hardcore archaeology. But I'd say that pure hardcore archaeology is the dead end. I mean, that's just my thing. Like, if you're just sitting there analyzing flakes or sherds, like I really love artifacts, I love glass, but nobody really wants to hear my long stories about glass bottles and medicines and stuff as much as they want to hear human stories of history. And so, I feel like if we just keep our head down and focus on just this quantifiable thing and pretend like we're somehow not connected to the world, you'll start to see more and more funding for these community-based things and more publications out of those, at the detriment to just these kind of pure analytical foci.
Thank you, Dr. White. It's just about 12:30, but I do know that Kat Furman had a quick question. So for those of you that can't stay on, maybe you can stay over for just another minute or two for Kat Furman's question. Go ahead.
Hello, everybody. I'm a new grad student and I'm very excited to be a member of the anthropology department. I intend to focus my studies on Native American studies. As a matter of fact, Native American women and their role with regard to patriarchy over the last 40 or 50 years and how white patriarchy may have seeped into Native culture. And I also am the co-chair of the Native and Indigenous Peoples Coalition at NSC where I work. And one of the things I wanted to bring up about bringing students into science, into archaeology, into anthropology, is that a lot of, I've already run into this during some baby step outreach, there's a trust issue. There are Native American communities, the majority of them who have trust issues with people of European descent, and for a very good reason. So outreach can be sketchy at times, and sometimes members of those communities are not willing to engage. And I've also done some tabling events where we've reached out to potential Native students. Last week we had First Year Fest at NSC, and I had a table and was giving information for the fee waiver that the state of Nevada approved. And I've also been to a powwow at UNLV, and I had Native students, Native learners coming up to me saying, we didn't even know we could go to school for free. No one told us. So there's not only a lack of communication, but there's, I believe, a very legitimate trust issue in getting students involved. And I'd love to be a part of changing that.
Yeah, we need more people to be part of that. I appreciate you sharing that. I mean, when it comes to archaeology, how many of you know, how many of you have heard that in the United States that Thomas Jefferson did the first archaeological dig in the United States? Who's ever heard of that? Anyone has ever heard of that in the notes or the responses? Yeah, someone at least has, right? If you look at the notes, do you think Thomas Jefferson actually excavated that native mound? Do you think he was out there with a shovel digging, finding those human skeletons? No, no. It was enslaved African people who were doing it, right? Fast forward to the Depression, there was an article I was reading about these women who were in Georgia excavating another native site as part of the Civilian Conservation Corps effort to keep single black mothers employed, right? So and then, you know, if folks have heard about it, the African burial ground place where, you know, folks advocated on behalf of African American remains in New York City, right? So this country, and archaeology specifically, has a long heritage of using groups to dig up other people's heritage, acknowledging the contributions of people of color in archaeology, and basically preying on native sites. And so it doesn't surprise me one bit that native people would be apprehensive about archaeology just in general, right? And I, as an archaeologist, feel like it's not my place to push the issue to tell Native people, African Americans, Chinese Americans about to push them into doing archaeology. It's just not my place. You know, healing comes at the pace of trust. And so if there isn't any trust between archaeologists and the community, then we shouldn't really be doing archaeology. That's just adding to the damage. At least that's how I feel. Going forward too, another misconception about college is that everybody's paying the sticker value of college. And there's a lot of people of color who don't realize that they qualify for a lot of different scholarships. And it's sad to hear that indigenous tribal offices are not helping students apply. But I can totally see how universities are not really telling Native folks that they can go to school for free. Why would they, right? Because they're looking at trying to increase tuition and enrollments and try to get people to pay retail. So what's the benefit of them telling a bunch of people and having thousands of them come to school for free? So it's it's a complicated thing. In that case, then is higher ed being honest here, right? Are they really helping all the people? I don't know. But folks, hopefully you stay with it, Kat. Just move at the pace of your own trust, and just intuitively listen to yourself and listen to the people that you're working with. And just know that there's a lot of stuff that just should not be known by archaeologists. It's cultural knowledge that doesn't need to be shared, and it's absolutely as valuable to protect. We don't need to know what it is to help them protect cultural knowledge. So just be who you are and do your best, but just know that it depends on people. You didn't create this thing; you just live in it. You're trying to make it better. So don't lose hope, right?
Okay, so that's our time. I want to
Okay.
really sincerely thank, yes, I didn't want to cut you off. Sorry, Dr. White. I want to sincerely thank you for being our very first speaker, opening us up this fall, and for taking your time to share this with us. Yes. And so thank you again to everyone also that had the time to come and join us. And we will be back here again on the 12th, right? After Labor Day. So for everyone that joined, thank you so much. It was good to see you all. Welcome back. And thank you again, Dr. White.
No problem. Thanks, everyone.